Hey everyone, this is Mr.Zombie, and tonight, we're diving deep into some of the most chilling stories ever caught on camera. From ghostly figures appearing at 3 a.m. to tragic events recorded moments before disaster struck. Every story you'll hear is said to be real, shared by people who wish they could forget what they saw. Hit the like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. Do you believe the camera ever lies?
One history, the gas station camera. It was around 2:45 a.m. when I realized something was off. I'd been working night shifts at a small gas station for about 6 months, and nothing ever really happened there except boredom. I usually killed time by watching the security cameras. 4 screens showed the pumps, the entrance, the back door, and the narrow hallway leading to the restroom. That night, rain hammered against the windows, and the neon sign flickered every few seconds. I remember thinking how quiet everything felt, until a faint static noise came from the monitor. One of the screens blinked, then cleared. What I saw next made my stomach drop. On the feed from the entrance, I saw myself walking out the front door. Same jacket, same hat, same limp from an old football injury. He or it stepped outside into the rain, turned toward the camera, and stared directly at it for about 5 seconds before vanishing out of frame. I froze. I was still sitting in the chair behind the counter, watching this happen live. I glanced toward the door. It was closed, locked, and untouched. I even checked my reflection in the glass. It was me, exactly where I should have been. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe the system was glitching or replaying an old recording. But the timestamp on the screen read 2:46 a.m., exactly current. I switched through the other cameras, and on the back door feed, the same version of me was now walking toward the dumpsters outside. That's when I noticed something even stranger. The version of me outside wasn't wet from the rain. His clothes were dry, movements too stiff, like he was acting out a routine, not really alive. My heart pounded. I grabbed my phone to record the screen as proof, but the moment I hit record, every monitor went black at once. The hum of the old lights above me stopped. The entire station went silent. And then, from outside, I heard the sound of footsteps, identical to mine. Slow, dragging, getting closer to the door. I wasn't alone anymore. The automatic door sensor let out a faint beep. Shouldn't have, the power was out. Yet I saw the metal frame twitch slightly, as if someone had brushed past it. I stood still behind the counter, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The sound of footsteps stopped. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the rain outside and my own breathing. Then, a faint reflection flickered on the glass door, me, or at least something that looked like me, standing outside under the neon light. I couldn't see his face clearly, but the white of his eyes seemed to catch the glow. He tilted his head, slow, unnatural, like he was studying me. I whispered, "Who's there?" No answer. My phone buzzed in my pocket, a notification from the security app. It said, "Motion detected, rear entrance." Rear entrance? That was behind the building. I turned the flashlight toward the monitor. Even though the power was still out, the screens flickered weakly, and there it was again. The figure, my double, walking through the back hallway toward the storage room. I rushed to the door, ready to lock it tighter, but when I peeked through the glass, the parking lot was empty. Completely empty. No one there. The copy of me that had been standing outside was gone. When I turned back to the monitors, I noticed something new. The camera view inside the station now showed me, sitting behind the counter, flashlight in hand, exactly what I was doing. Except I wasn't looking at the screen in that feed. The version of me on the monitor slowly raised its head and stared directly into the camera. Every hair on my arms stood on end. Then, in the feed, I smiled. A wide, unnatural grin that stretched too far. I dropped the flashlight. It rolled across the floor, beam swinging wildly. For a second, I could have sworn I saw a shadow move near the restroom door. A long, human-shaped shadow. That's when a loud crash echoed from the storage room in the back. Boxes falling, glass shattering. I grabbed a wrench from the shelf and started moving slowly toward the sound. Every instinct screaming to get out, but my legs refused to obey. As I approached the hallway, my phone buzzed again with another alert. Face detected. Camera 3, Inside counter. The notification included a thumbnail image. It was me, but the timestamp said 3 a.m., 1 minute into the future. I stared at the notification. 3 a.m. The digital clock on the wall ticked to 2:59. 1 minute. My pulse hammered in my throat. I backed into the storage room, gripping the wrench tighter. The rain outside had stopped, but the silence it left behind was worse. No hum of the lights, no sound from the refrigerators, just that awful, empty stillness. I focused on the hallway camera monitor. Static filled the screen for a second, then cleared. The feed showed me standing exactly where I was now, holding the wrench, but my copy began to move first. I hadn't even taken a step yet. It walked toward the counter, slowly, dragging one leg like it was broken. Then it stopped and turned its head toward the storage room, toward me. I dropped the wrench and bolted for the exit. The glass door didn't open. I yanked it again and again until my hands hurt. Then I realized something that made my stomach twist. From the reflection in the glass, there was no one standing behind me. And yet, I could hear footsteps. Heavy, uneven steps coming from the hallway. The air grew cold, almost metallic. I could smell something, burnt wires, maybe. I turned my head just enough to see a shadow stretch along the floor, long and wrong, moving even though the lights were still dead. It whispered. I swear it whispered. My own voice, raspy and quiet. Don't look. But I did. The figure was inches away now, me or what used to look like me. Face pale, eyes hollow, skin twitching like a bad signal. It raised its hand and touched the glass between us. For a split second, the reflection synced. I was watching myself from both sides. Then the lights flickered on. The rain resumed. The copy vanished. When the morning manager arrived, the place looked normal again except for one thing. On the security footage between 2:45 and 3 a.m., there was no video feed at all. Just one frame frozen in time, me, staring directly into the camera, smiling. I never went back to that gas station.
To History Room 217. I'd been driving for 12 hours straight when the rain forced me to pull over. The only place with vacancy sign glowing to the downpour was an old roadside motel called the Silver Rest. The paint was peeling, the sign buzzed faintly, and the clerk behind the counter looked half asleep. When I asked for a room, he hesitated, then handed me the key to room 217. The hallway smelled of dust and cigarette smoke. The lights flickered, casting long shadows that seemed to crawl along the walls. Inside, the room was small but clean enough. One bed, one mirror, one old television that barely worked. I tossed my backpack on the chair and sat on the bed, trying to ignore the strange feeling that the room was listening. Around 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of someone whispering. The TV was off, the door locked, and the rain had stopped. Yet from the corner of the room near the mirror came a faint voice, low and rhythmic, like someone praying. I turned on the lamp. That's when I saw her. A pale woman was sitting in the corner, head bowed, hair covering her face. Her clothes were soaked, as if she'd been standing outside in the rain. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming. I blinked, and she was gone. The chair in the corner was empty, but the carpet beneath it was wet. I grabbed my phone and checked the camera feed from the motel's app. Every room had internal monitoring for safety, as the sign said. When I scrolled to my room's feed, my heart stopped. The woman was there, still sitting in the corner, motionless. The timestamp read 3 a.m., and in the reflection of the mirror, I saw something else. She wasn't alone. I leaned close to the phone screen, squinting at the reflection. Behind the woman in the mirror stood a second figure, blurry, tall, almost blending into the shadows. It didn't move, but I could tell it was facing the camera. My hands shook as I refreshed the feed. The timestamp hadn't changed. The image was frozen, but the reflection had shifted. The tall shadow now leaned closer to the woman, its head tilted, like it was whispering into her ear. I turned the camera toward the mirror in real time. Nothing, just my terrified face staring back. But when I glanced at the carpet again, the wet spot had grown. Water was now dripping from the ceiling directly above it. I climbed onto the bed to check the leak. The water smelled faintly of mildew, maybe even iron, As I touched it, my fingers came away red. Not water. I stumbled back and nearly dropped my phone. When I looked at the camera feed again, the scene had changed. The woman in the corner was standing now, her head slowly rising, her wet hair sticking to her face. Her eyes were completely white. Then the feed began to distort. The woman started walking toward the camera, toward me. The image glitched, freezing her face inches from the lens. That's when the motel phone on the nightstand rang. The sharp sound sliced through the silence. I didn't want to answer, but I couldn't help it. My hand moved on its own. Room 217, I said, my voice cracking. A pause. Then a whisper on the other end. She never left. The line went dead. I dropped the receiver and backed away, heart pounding. The mirror across from me began to fog over from the inside, like someone was breathing behind it. Letters appeared slowly, drawn in the mist. Look up. My breath caught in my throat. I looked up, and for a moment, I thought the ceiling was cracking. But it wasn't the plaster breaking. It was the mirror's reflection. The reflection above me rippled like water, distorting my image until it was no longer mine. Something inside it moved. I stumbled back toward the door, fumbling with the lock, but it wouldn't turn. It was as if someone was holding it from the other side. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The motel security app again. New footage. The feed showed my room from a hallway camera, filmed through the narrow window in the door. I froze when I saw it. There were two people inside room 217. One was me, standing near the door, panicking. The other was the pale woman, behind me, reaching out. I spun around. Nothing. Just the empty air, heavy and cold. Then the TV flickered to life, showing static that slowly cleared into an image of the same room, same bed, except the woman was sitting on it now. The camera angle was impossible, as if the TV itself was watching from above. Her voice came from the speakers, soft and calm. You shouldn't have looked. The lamp beside me shattered. The sound sent me crashing to floor. I crawled toward the window, tore open the curtain, and tried to scream for help. But outside, through the glass, was another version of room 217, and another me standing inside, watching. For a second, our eyes met. Then the other version smiled. The lights went out. The reflection disappeared. And suddenly, everything was silent again, except for the faint dripping of water on the carpet. When I finally forced the door open and ran into the night, the clerk was waiting at the front desk. He didn't look surprised. I told him not to rent that room anymore, he muttered. I looked back. The sign for room 217 wasn't there. Only room 216 and 218. The police checked the security tapes the next morning. There was no footage of me ever entering room 217. But the cameras showed someone else sitting inside, a woman, still and pale, staring at the door.
3 History, the Underpass Recording. It started as a stupid idea. My friend Tyler and I have been filming short urban exploration videos for our tiny YouTube channel, Nightcrawlers. We weren't popular, but we loved sneaking into abandoned places, turning on our flashlights, and pretending we were ghost hunters. One Friday night, someone commented under our newest upload, "If you're real explorers, check out the old underpass beneath Route 7. People say you can still hear the accident down there." That was enough to hook Tyler. By midnight, we were parked near the barricaded tunnel entrance, a half-collapsed concrete mouth covered in graffiti. The night air was damp, cold enough that our breath fogged in the flashlight beams. We squeezed through a gap in the fence, cameras recording. The first few minutes were uneventful. Rusted pipes, dripping water, an echo with every step. Tyler joked that we'd get more rats than ghosts. But as we went deeper, I noticed something strange. The sound of our footsteps wasn't echoing evenly anymore. It was like someone else was walking out of sync behind us. I turned around. Nothing. Just darkness stretching toward the entrance. We reached a wider section where the tunnel split into 2 smaller corridors. On the wall, scrawled in thick black spray paint, were the words, "Turn off the lights to see it." Tyler laughed. Oh man, perfect clickbait. He turned off his flashlight before I could stop him. For a moment, everything went black, complete, suffocating darkness.
Then my camera picked something up. A faint silhouette standing about 20 feet away. It wasn't Tyler. It was taller, thinner, perfectly still. I whispered, "Ty, do you see that?" He turned his light back on, and the figure vanished. We decided to keep going, pretending it was just shadows. But when we reviewed the footage later, frame by frame, the figure was still there. And every time the lights went out, it got closer. When we got home that night, we dumped all the footage onto my laptop. It was 2:40 a.m., and we were exhausted, but too curious to sleep. I opened the file named Underpass Raw Clip 3, the one where Tyler turned off his flashlight. At first, everything looked normal. Shaky video, our voices echoing, water dripping. But then for exactly 6 seconds, there was movement in the far left corner of the frame. The shadow figure stepped forward, stopped, and its head tilted toward the camera. Tyler leaned in. "That's just you, right?" I shook my head. "No, I was holding the camera. You were standing next to me." We scrubbed the video back and forth. The more we watched, the more wrong it felt. Its movements weren't smooth. It jittered like a corrupted file. But it wasn't a glitch. The figure cast a shadow on the floor. Tyler insisted we go back. He said we needed proof, clearer footage, better lighting, something viral. I said no. He laughed, called me paranoid, and said he'd go alone if he had to. The next day, he did. I got a text around 9 p.m. "Bro, you won't believe what I found." That was the last message I ever got from him. When I drove to the underpass to look for him, his car was still parked near the fence. The door was open, keys in the ignition. His phone was lying on the passenger seat, recording. The screen showed only one thing: the underpass entrance, dark and quiet. Then a voice, faint, barely audible. "Turn off the lights." I dropped the phone. Later, when the police reviewed the video, they said something strange. In the last 10 seconds, another voice whispered my name. But I hadn't been there. The police searched the tunnel for hours but never found Tyler. They said the ground near the center had partially collapsed years ago. There was a deep drop filled with stagnant water and debris. Too dangerous to search without proper gear. They left the site sealed. I couldn't. I went back a week later. The barricade was still there. The "no entry" signs faded. I crawled through the same opening, heart pounding so hard I could hear in my ears. Every sound echoed. The dripping, the scrape of my boots, the faint buzz of my flashlight. When I reached the place where we saw the graffiti, it was gone. The wall was smooth, wet, bare concrete. I thought maybe the police painted over it, until I shone my light higher. The words were still there, carved deep into the ceiling instead. "Turn off the lights." My flashlight flickered. I hit it once, twice, then it went out completely. The darkness was absolute. And then a whisper right behind my ear. "You came back." I froze. My breath fogged in the cold air, though I couldn't see it. I turned the flashlight back on and saw Tyler's camera on the ground. The lens was cracked, covered in mud, but the red light was still blinking. When I picked it up, the screen lit with a single frame of video, the tunnel entrance. Something tall stood just beyond the edge of the light, motionless, waiting. As the image distorted, I noticed movement at the bottom of the frame. A figure crawling on hands and knees. Its face half in shadow. It looked like me. That was the last moment recorded before the screen went black. The camera's timestamp read 3 a.m. I don't film anymore. Sometimes when I try to sleep, I hear that same whisper near my window.
For
"Turn off
history,
the lights."
the Babysitter's feed. When I was 17, I took a weekend babysitting job for a couple in the suburbs. Their house was modern, clean, and quiet, too quiet. They had a 6-month-old baby named Emily and a high-tech baby monitor that streamed directly to my phone. It even had night vision. Everything was fine until 3 a.m. I woke up on the couch because the baby monitor app started vibrating nonstop. The screen showed the nursery in black and white. Emily was sleeping peacefully in her crib, but there was something else in the frame. A tall, dark silhouette stood beside the crib, perfectly still. No face, no features, just a shape. My first thought was that it was a glitch or maybe one of the parents checking in through another camera. But both parents were on vacation, hundreds of miles away. I froze, staring at the phone screen as the figure slowly leaned over the crib. I jumped up and ran to the nursery. The door was closed. When I opened it, the room was empty. The baby was fine, still asleep. I checked the closet, the hallway, nothing. When I looked back at the monitor, the shadow was gone. I texted the parents immediately. The mother replied after a few minutes. "That's impossible. The motion detector hasn't worked since last month." I didn't sleep after that. I kept the lights on, sitting in the living room with the monitor on the table, trying not to blink. Then, at 3:33 a.m., the app started buzzing again. The same figure appeared on the feed. This time, it was standing in the hallway, right outside the living room door, that I froze, watching the tiny gray image on my phone. The hallway camera showed the figure standing just a few feet from where I was sitting, motionless, head tilted slightly to one side. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I turned my head toward the real hallway. Empty. I could see the baby's door still closed, the night light glowing faintly under it. When I looked back at the phone, the figure had moved closer. Now it was standing in the middle of the living room, exactly behind the couch I was sitting on. I didn't even think. I dropped the phone, spun around, nothing there. Just the quiet hum of the fridge. I grabbed the house phone and dialed 911, but before I could speak, the screen of my phone lit up again on the floor. The baby monitor was still active. The figure was gone from the living room camera, but the nursery feed showed it again, bent over the crib. "Emily," I shouted, running upstairs. The nursery door was ajar now. When I pushed it open, the baby was crying. I scooped her up, whispering to calm her, scanning the corners of the room. The air felt colder. I could see my breath. I turned to leave, but the hallway lights flickered, and for a split second, I saw a shadow move along the wall, slipping into the parents' bedroom. Holding the baby close, I stepped backward, trying to reach the stairs without turning my back. My phone buzzed again, a message from a mother. "Check under the crib." My blood ran cold. I hadn't told her anything about what was happening, yet that I stared at the message. "Check under the crib." The timestamp showed it had arrived 30 seconds ago, but the mother's phone number didn't match the one she texted me from earlier. My throat went dry. Still holding Emily, I knelt and leaned to look under the crib. There was nothing, just a few toys, a blanket, and the cold floor. But when I sat back up, the baby monitor on my phone started glitching again. The image flickered between two rooms, the nursery and the living room downstairs. In the living room feed, the figure was there again, standing in front of the camera, closer than ever. Its outline was clearer now, more human, and its hand was pressed against the lens. Then it tilted its head up, and I realized it wasn't looking into the camera. It was looking through it. The screen went black, replaced by text that I swear I didn't type. "You left the door open." I turned. The nursery door was wide open, light spilling into the hallway. I ran downstairs, clutching Emily, and burst outside into the cold night. The street was empty. When the parents came back 2 days later, the first thing they asked me was, "Did you see him too?" They showed me a photo from the nursery's built-in security system. At 3:33 a.m., a tall man-shaped shadow stood beside the crib. His face was turned toward the camera, and it looked exactly like 5 History the Security Room. I used to work night shifts as a security guard at Westbrook Mall, one of those half-abandoned shopping centers where most stores had already shut down. My job was simple: watch the CCTV feeds, make hourly rounds, and write down anything unusual. For months, nothing ever happened. Until that night. It was 2:58 a.m. I was sipping coffee, half asleep, when the camera for Corridor B flickered. At first, I thought it was a glitch, but then I saw her. A woman in a white dress was walking slowly down the hall, barefoot, her hair hanging over her face. She moved like she was lost. I checked the time, 3 a.m. exactly. No one should have been there. The mall was locked, alarms armed, and every exit sealed. I switched to the next camera. She was closer now, moving between the flickering lights. I grabbed my radio and called the other guard, Mark, but there was only static. When I looked back at the monitor, she had stopped and turned her head directly toward the camera. Her face was pale, almost glowing under the fluorescent light, and her eyes were just black shadows. I zoomed in. Her lips were moving. I turned up the volume on the feed, but there was no sound. Still, I could read her mouth. She was saying, "Help me." Then, all the lights in the corridor went out at once. I grabbed my flashlight and left the security room, heart pounding. The closer I got to Corridor B, the stronger the smell of burnt wires became. When I turned the corner, the lights flickered back on. The hallway was empty. But on the wall, written in something dark, smeared by a hand, were 2 words. "Still here." I backed away from the wall, my flashlight shaking. The words looked wet, not paint, not marker. I didn't want to think about what it was. I called out hello, but my voice just echoed down the corridor and came back empty. Then my radio crackled. Tom. It was Mark. I almost laughed in relief. "Yeah, I'm here. You seen this?" I said, keeping my eyes on the wall. There was a pause, then static. "Don't go back to the room." "What? Why?" But he didn't answer. The radio went silent again. The emergency lights above me flickered, one after another, all the way down the corridor, toward the security room. It felt like the building itself was breathing, pulsing with every flash. I started walking, trying to convince myself I was just tired, that it was a prank. But when I reached the security room door, it was already open. Inside, the monitors were on, all of them. Every camera showed a different part of the mall. Hallways, parking lot, elevators. And on each screen she was there, the same woman in white. In some feeds, she stood far away, motionless. In others, she was walking slowly toward the camera, her face hidden behind her hair. Then, one by one, the screens went dark, until only the feed from my own security room remained. She was standing right behind my chair in the video. I spun around. The room was empty, but the chair was still turning. I stumbled back, hitting the table, and one of the monitors fell to the floor, cracking. From a speaker came a faint whisper, distorted but unmistakable. "You shouldn't have followed me." I backed toward the door, my flashlight trembling. Just before leaving, I glanced at the broken screen. For half a second, I saw my own reflection staring back, but the version of me on the screen was smiling that I ran. My boots echoed across the tiled floor, every sound chasing me like footsteps behind my own. When I reached the main lobby, the automatic doors were locked tight, even though they should have opened when I got close. I grabbed my radio again. "Mark, I'm in the lobby. Where are you?" Static. Then a faint reply. "I'm here. Come downstairs." Downstairs? The basement was sealed off months ago. It flooded after a pipe burst. But the voice on the radio sounded just like Mark. I hesitated for a long moment, then turned toward the stairwell. My flashlight beam trembled across the walls, catching mold, peeling paint, and an old sign that read Security Archives. The air was thick and cold. When I reached the bottom, the smell hit me first, wet concrete and something metallic. Water covered the floor, reflecting the light in rippling patterns. And then I saw her. She was standing ankle-deep in the water, facing away from me. Her white dress floated slightly, as if moving on its own. For a moment, I thought maybe it was a person, a lost woman who'd broken in. "Ma'am." I called out, voice shaking. She turned. The face wasn't human. It was a blur, like static, in the shape of a person. Her mouth moved too fast for words. Every light in the hallway began flickering wildly, and in the reflection of the water, I saw another figure standing beside me. It was Mark, but he looked wrong. His skin pale, eyes black, uniform soaked through. He whispered, "You saw her too." The lights blew out. The sound of rushing water filled the room. When I woke up, it was daylight. I was lying on the lobby floor. The basement door was locked again, and my uniform was drenched, as if I'd crawled through water. Mark never came back to work. They said he quit. But when a new guard took my shift a week later, he called me at 3 a.m., terrified. He said the cameras showed a man sitting in the security room, staring at the screens. When he zoomed in, he swore it was me, still wearing my badge, still watching the feeds.
And that's it for tonight's tales caught on camera. Each one reminding us that some things don't vanish when the recording stops. Maybe the lens shows what we refuse to see, the ghosts we made ourselves, If you made it this far, you're one of the brave ones. Hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. What would you do if your camera showed something standing right behind you at 3 a.m.?